I still remember the sound. Not the words my father said, not the look on his face, but the sound. The crack of his hand against my cheek echoed through that mahogany office like a gunshot. I stood there 32 years old, tasting blood in my mouth, watching the man who raised me look at me like I was nothing. He had just told me I was not a real man, that I could not carry on our name, that my brother Garrett would inherit everything we had built together because I could not give him grandchildren. But he had no idea what he just set in motion. Before I tell you how everything my father built came crashing down, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe because this story proves that blood does not always mean loyalty. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Casey, and for 14 years I poured everything I had into my father's construction company. Frank started that business with $2,000 and a beat-up truck back in 1990. By the time I was 18, it was worth close to $5 million, and he promised both me and my older brother Garrett that we would share it equally someday. I believed him. I worked 70, sometimes 80 hours a week. I learned every single aspect of that business from the ground up. I spent summers as a laborer, winters in the office, learning accounting, evenings studying project management. I knew that company inside and out, from how to pour a foundation to how to read a balance sheet. Garrett was different. 4 years older than me, he took the easier path. He was good at schmoozing clients, playing golf, taking people out to expensive dinners. He knew how to talk, but he did not know how to build. Our father never seemed to mind. He would say Garrett had people skills that every business needed a face. I was fine with that. I thought we balanced each other out. I thought we were building something together as a family. The relationship between Garrett and me was never particularly close, but it was not bad either. We had that typical older brother, younger brother dynamic. A little competitive, but nothing serious. We both wanted Dad's approval, sure, but I never thought it would come to what it did. I never thought family could turn so cold. 3 years ago, I married Diana. She was a teacher at the local elementary school, kind patient, everything I needed after long days on construction sites. We wanted kids right away. We tried for 2 years. Nothing happened. Finally, we went to see a doctor, and that is when everything changed. The doctor told us I had a condition, something from a childhood infection that damaged things permanently. The medical terms did not matter. What mattered was the bottom line. I could not have children naturally. The doctor said we could try IVF or we could adopt. Diana cried. I held her hand and told her we would figure it out together. I thought it was private, our business. But Diana, trying to process everything, mentioned it to my mother Linda during a weekend visit. My mother, worried about me, told my father. And that is when Frank started looking at me differently. About a week after that doctor's visit, Dad called me into his private office at the company headquarters. The office had this huge window overlooking our equipment yard, and he stood there with his back to me, hands in his pockets. He did not turn around when he asked, "Is it true what your mother told me?" I knew immediately what he meant. My stomach dropped. I told him yes, it was true, but that Diana and I had options. We would find a way. He finally turned around. The disappointment on his face was so heavy I could almost feel it pressing down on my chest. A man who cannot have sons cannot understand what it means to build a legacy, he said. I tried to explain. I told him about IVF, about adoption, about how we could still have a family. He just shook his head. It is not the same, he said. Blood is blood. That conversation changed everything. Within days, I noticed the shift. Dad stopped inviting me to important client meetings. Projects I had been managing suddenly got transferred to Garrett. When I asked why Dad would say something vague like, "Garrett needs more experience. He will need it." I did not understand what he meant then, but I do now. He was preparing to cut me out. I tried to fight it by working harder. I completed every project ahead of schedule. I brought in 3 new major contracts that year alone. One of them was worth $800,000. I would bring the signed contracts to Dad's office, hoping for some recognition, some sign that I still mattered. He would glance at the papers, nod, say, "Good work," and that was it. No enthusiasm, no pride, just cold acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Garrett got praised for bringing in clients that spent half as much, and Dad would introduce him to everyone as the future of this company. 6 months passed, and the favoritism became impossible to ignore. Garrett got a $20,000 raise. I got nothing, despite outperforming him in every measurable way. Dad started taking Garrett to industry conferences, the kind he used to take me to. At family dinners, which used to be warm and full of conversation, Dad would only ask Garrett about work. He would ask about Garrett's son Mason, who was 2 years old at the time. He barely looked at me. My mother Linda saw what was happening. She pulled Dad aside more than once, trying to talk sense into him, but he would not listen. I heard them arguing one night when I stopped by the house to drop off some paperwork. "You are being cruel," my mother said. "Casey is your son, too." "I am thinking about the future," Dad replied. "Casey cannot give us grandchildren. Garrett can. Garrett understands what it means to pass something down." Garrett had married his wife Brooke 5 years earlier, and they had Mason pretty quickly. Dad was obsessed with that kid. He saw Mason as the future heir, the one who would eventually take over when Garrett retired. Every time Dad looked at Mason, then looked at me, I could see the thought written across his face. "You failed. You cannot do this one simple thing." The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Dad called a family meeting at the office. Everyone was there. My mother, me, Diana, Garrett, Brooke, even Mason toddling around the conference room. Dad stood at the head of the table, and I knew something big was coming by the way he cleared his throat. He announced he was restructuring the company. Garrett would become CEO effective immediately. I would be moved to senior project manager. It sounded like a decent title until you realized it was actually a demotion. I was being pushed down while my brother was being elevated above me. I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. "Dad, why?" I managed to ask. "I have worked just as hard as Garrett. I brought in 3 major contracts this year. I have been here since I was 18. He looked at me with those cold eyes and said, "This is not about what you did. This is about what you can give to the family." There it was, out in the open. I could not give him grandchildren, so I did not matter anymore. I tried to stay calm. "Diana and I are looking into adoption," I said. "We can still have a family." Dad shook his head. "Adopted children are not real blood. They will not care about this business the way Mason will. Garrett has a son. Garrett can teach Mason everything. Garrett can pass this down properly." Diana started crying beside me. My mother stared at the table, her hands trembling. Garrett sat there with this smug little smile on his face, like he had won some competition I did not even know we were having. Brooke had her hand on his shoulder, both of them looking triumphant. I felt humiliated, furious, heartbroken. But I swallowed it all down and asked, "So that is it? My entire life in this company means nothing because of something I cannot control." "This is final," Dad said. "If you cannot accept it, you know where the door is." I should have left right then. But I did not. I still had this stupid hope that I could prove myself that I could change his mind. So for 3 more months, I stayed. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I took on a project that everyone else said was impossible. A commercial building renovation with a nightmare timeline and a tiny budget. I managed every detail, personally worked 16-hour days, and finished it 2 weeks early. We saved the company $200,000. I brought the final reports to Dad's office, my hands actually shaking, because I was so sure this would be the thing that made him see me again. He looked through the reports, nodding occasionally. "Good work," he said. "Dad," I said, "does this change anything? Can you reconsider the decision about Garrett?" He looked up at me and there was nothing in his eyes. No warmth, no pride, nothing. "No, my decision stands." Something broke inside me. "Why do you hate me so much?" I asked. "What did I do to deserve this?" He stood up from behind his desk. "I do not hate you," he said. "I am just realistic. You are not the son who can carry my legacy." "You are wrong," I said, and I heard my voice rising even though I was trying to stay calm. "This business is not just about blood. It is about hard work and dedication. It is about knowing every part of this company, caring about quality, building relationships with crews and suppliers. I know this business better than Garrett ever will." "Do not lecture me about my own company," Dad shouted back. "I am not lecturing you," I said. "I am trying to make you see what you are throwing away. Garrett does not work as hard as I do. He does not know half of what I know. You are making a mistake." His face turned red. He came around the desk and got right in my face. "You are jealous and pathetic." "I am not jealous," I said, and I could feel tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I am hurt. You are my father, and you are throwing me away like garbage because of something I cannot control." That is when he did it. He pulled his hand back and slapped me across the face so hard that I actually stumbled sideways. The sound of it seemed to fill the entire room. My cheek burned. I could taste blood where my teeth cut the inside of my mouth. For a moment, everything went silent. I just stood there, hand on my face, staring at him. He was breathing hard, his face still red with anger. "Get out of my office," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "And if you cannot respect my decisions, get out of my company too." I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10. Then I turned around and walked out. I did not say a word. What was there to say? I drove home in a daze. My face was still throbbing. When I walked through the door, Diana took one look at me and knew something terrible had happened. I told her everything. She was furious. She wanted to go back there to scream at my father, to make him apologize. But I stopped her. "No," I said. "I am done. He made his choice. Now I will make mine." The next morning, I went to the office early before anyone else arrived. I typed up my resignation letter, printed it, and left it on the HR manager's desk. I cleaned out my desk, took my personal files, and walked out. I did not talk to my father. I did not talk to Garrett. I was finished. My mother called that afternoon, crying. She begged me to reconsider, to give it more time, to let her talk to Dad. "Mom," I said, "I love you, but I cannot stay in a place where I am not valued. I cannot work for a man who hit me for telling the truth." "He is just scared," she said. "Scared of getting old, scared of dying without leaving something behind properly. It is not about you." "It is exactly about me," I said. "And I am done being his disappointment." My father never called, never apologized, never tried to get me to come back. That told me everything I needed to know. For the first few weeks, I felt lost. I had spent half my life in that company. It was my identity. But Diana kept me grounded. She reminded me that I had skills, experience, and a reputation in the industry. "Start your own thing," she said. "You know you can do this." So I did. I used our savings and started a construction consulting business. I would help smaller contractors bid on projects, manage timelines, solve problems. It was not glamorous at first. My first few clients were small jobs, nothing like the million-dollar projects I used to handle. But I worked hard. I treated every client like they were my only client. I delivered quality work on time and under budget. Word spread. I reached out to some of the clients I had worked with at my father's company. Clients who knew me, who trusted me. A few of them were unhappy with how Garrett was running things now that he was in charge. They started hiring me instead. Within 6 months, I was making a decent income. Within a year, I had a small team and a steady stream of projects. I was not rich, but I was stable, and more importantly, I was happy. I was building something that was mine. While I was rebuilding my life, I started hearing things through the industry grapevine. Garrett was making mistakes, big ones. He had taken on a project that was too ambitious, promised deadlines he could not meet, and cut corners to save money. The client was furious. They refused to pay the final invoice and left a scathing review that other potential clients saw. 3 major clients left after that. Garrett, instead of taking responsibility, blamed the crew. He fired some of the best workers. The company had people who had been there for 15 years. Those workers were angry. Some of them came to work for me. They told me what was really going on inside the company. It was chaos. Garrett did not know how to manage projects. He did not understand the technical side. He was all talk and no substance. Meanwhile, he was spending money like crazy. New company cars, remodeling the office with expensive furniture. He wanted everything to look successful, but underneath the foundation was crumbling. My father tried to step back in, I heard. He saw what was happening and tried to take control again, but Garrett would not let him. "You gave me this company," Garrett told him, according to one person who overheard the argument. "Let me run it my way." My father was stuck. He had made Garrett CEO. He had told everyone Garrett was the future. He could not take it back without admitting he was wrong. 18 months after I left, I heard the company had lost more than half its value. They had to sell off equipment to pay debts. They laid off most of the staff. My father's health declined from the stress. He had always been this strong, intimidating presence, but now he was just a tired old man watching everything he built fall apart. Garrett was still in denial, still acting like everything was fine, still blaming everyone else. His marriage was suffering too. Brooke had gotten used to a certain lifestyle, and now the money was drying up. They were fighting constantly. I wish I could say I felt bad for them. Part of me did, especially for my mother, who had to watch the whole thing fall apart. But mostly I felt vindicated. My father had been so sure that blood was everything, that legacy was everything, that I was worthless, because I could not give him biological grandchildren. He destroyed our relationship over it. And what did it get him? A company in ruins, and a son who did not have the skills to save it. 2 years after I walked out of that office with a burning handprint on my face, my mother called me. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "It is your father," she said. "He had a heart attack. He is in the hospital. Please, Casey, please come." I did not want to go. Diana told me I did not have to, but my mother was begging, and despite everything, she had always tried to be fair to me. So I went. The hospital room was quiet except for the beeping of machines. My father looked so small in that bed hooked up to tubes and wires. His face was gray. His hands, which had once been so strong, looked thin and weak. My mother sat beside him holding his hand. Garrett was not there. I found out later he was too busy trying to salvage a failed project to visit. Dad's eyes opened when I walked in. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something I had never seen before. Regret. Real, genuine regret. "Casey," he said, his voice scratchy and weak. "You came." "Mom asked me to," I said. I did not sit down. I just stood at the foot of the bed. "I was wrong," he said. The words seemed to take all his energy. "About everything. I was wrong." I did not respond. What was I supposed to say? That it was okay. It was not okay. "I thought blood was everything," he continued. "I thought legacy meant grandchildren, meant passing the business to someone who could pass it to their son. I was a fool." "Yes," I said quietly. "You were." "I am sorry," he said, and tears actually rolled down his cheeks. "I am so sorry for what I said to you, for what I did to you. You were always the better son, the harder worker, the smarter one. I let my fear and my pride blind me." I felt my throat tighten. Part of me wanted to scream at him to tell him how much he hurt me, how he destroyed everything between us. But another part of me just felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of hurting. "I forgave you a long time ago, Dad," I said. "But I cannot forget what you did. I cannot pretend it did not happen." He nodded, understanding. "How is your business?" he asked. "Good," I said. "Growing. We are doing well." He smiled just a tiny bit. "You always were the better businessman. I should have seen it." We talked for a few more minutes. Nothing deep. Nothing that fixed the past. But it was something. When I left, my mother hugged me tight and thanked me for coming. I told her I loved her, and I meant it. But I also knew I would never have the relationship with my father that I once had. Too much had been broken. My father survived that heart attack. He recovered enough to leave the hospital, but he was never the same. The company had to be sold. There was too much debt, too many burned bridges. Garrett tried to spin it as a strategic decision, but everyone knew the truth. The company Frank built from nothing was gone. Garrett ended up having to take a job at another firm working for someone else, making a fraction of what he used to. Brooke left him a year later. She took Mason and moved to another state. Garrett lost everything. I did not gloat. I did not rub it in. I just kept building my own business, my own life. Diana and I decided to move forward with adoption. It took time, but eventually we brought home a beautiful 3-year-old girl named Emma. She had been in foster care, moved from home to home, waiting for someone to choose her. The moment we met her, we knew she was ours. She lit up our whole world. My father met Emma once, a few months after we adopted her. He was living in a smaller house, by then his health fragile, his pride finally broken. He held Emma on his lap and watched her play with a toy we had brought. When he looked up at me, his eyes were wet. "She is perfect," he said. "You are a good father, Casey. Better than I ever was." I did not argue with him. He was right. Emma does not know the whole story. She does not know about the slap, about the company, about the way my father tried to write me out of his legacy. All she knows is that she has 2 parents who love her more than anything in the world, and that is all that matters. We do not need anyone's approval. We do not need blood to be a real family. My business is thriving now. I have 15 employees, steady contracts, and a reputation for quality and integrity. I built something I am proud of. Not because I wanted to prove my father wrong, although maybe that was part of it at first. I built it because I believed in myself, because I refused to let someone else's narrow definition of worth define me. Sometimes I think about that day in the office, the sound of his hand hitting my face, the way he looked at me like I was nothing. And I realize now that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to walk away. It forced me to build my own path. My father thought I could not carry his legacy. He was right. Because I was too busy building my own. Legacy is not about blood. It is not about passing a business to your son so he can pass it to his son. Legacy is about the impact you make, the integrity you show, the love you give. My legacy is not a company. It is Emma. It is the way Diana and I built a life together when everything fell apart. It is the employees who trust me, the clients who respect me, the relationships I have built on my own terms. My father wanted a legacy carved in stone, passed down through generations of biological children. What he got was a company that collapsed and a son who does not speak to him. I wanted nothing but to be valued for who I was. What I got was freedom, and that is worth more than any inheritance. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is the push you need to walk away and find your own path. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family because they could not see your worth? Have you ever built something from nothing after losing everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming betrayal and finding your own strength. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their value is not determined by someone else's expectations. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you are enough exactly as you are, and that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best life you never imagined. Take care of yourselves out there.